I just wanted to share a little technique with you, something that might come in handy if you're ever doing a hunting trip where you're going to be hunting animals requiring different arrows, specifically different arrow weight. So I'm heading off on a hunt where I'll be the main animal going for giraffe, which clearly requires a much heavier arrow compared to your normal plains game. And obviously I don't want to only shoot giraffe, I want to be shooting other stuff. So I plan on using two different arrows. The first arrow is a pretty heavy 965 grain grizzly stick compared to my normal plains game arrow. It's around 500 grains and it's a very thin little Victory VAP. So the snag that you come up with is obviously your sight is going to be set up for one arrow and not the other. And you know, I've thought of a whole bunch of different ways of doing it. You could have two different sets of marks on a sight tape if you're using a single pin sight, or if you're using a 4 or 5 pin, you could set up particular ones for different arrows at different distances. And I just thought that'd get really confusing, and you'd be really annoyed with yourself if you used the wrong pin at the wrong distance with the wrong arrow. It's just too many variables to make a mistake. So what I came up with, and this is pertinent to my sight, using a HHA Kingpin with the sight wheel. Obviously you can interchange these as you need to, and I've got one set up for the light arrow and another one that I had to make by hand for the heavy arrow. So the snag is, when you remove the sight, how do you get the next one back on in the right spot? So I came up with a little something. It's really simple. It seems to work well, and I'll show you how I do it, and hopefully it can help out. So what I'll do first is I'll shoot the light arrow out of the Impala over there at 40 yards, and then I'll show you if I manage to get a decent grouping. And this is not about my accuracy, it's just mainly about showing that you can switch the sight tapes and use different arrows pretty easily and still get a good grouping. So I'll shoot a couple at the Impala there with the light arrow first, and then I'll show you how we switch over, and hopefully it's a decent enough grouping so that you'll believe that I can actually do this. Alrighty, and as I said, I don't claim to be particularly accurate, so no judging if I don't. Alrighty, I think we'll just shoot two of the light, and when we switch over we'll shoot two of the heavy ones and see how it goes. Righty, so as I say, not the most careful shots in the world there, but let's have a quick look, see if they're reasonable, and then we'll switch over and use the heavy arrow. Righty, so there we go. Not the best shots in the world, but doable and a decent enough grouping, and you know, definitely passable. So we'll get these out and switch over to the heavy and see how it goes. Right, so this is not something you really want to do while you're on a walk and stalk or something, dropping little Allen keys here and there, but it's, you know, mainly for if you're on a hunt, you want to do two different animals, you're going to want to change this. Or even if you are sitting in a hide and say you've given up on the giraffe, but then on the last day they walk in and you've got the wrong arrow on there, you can change this in 2 minutes and be ready to go. So I'll show you what I do. So first thing that I did, I set the little manual stop. If you know what that is, the manual stop stops the sight moving down, and I've got that set on 20 yards for the light arrow, and that coincides with a mark that I've made on my handmade sight, or manually made sight, for setting it up. So as I say, it doesn't take too long. Pull this one off, try not to lose the very little locking nut, and it doesn't really even matter where it is when you take it off. you're going to slide the next one on, and what I do, let's try not to drop it. What I do is slide it past where I want to go, get it on there. I haven't tightened anything, and I'm just going to move this down until I know that that's at the stop, until this lines up with the black mark that I've made there. Obviously, the more accurately you can set that, holding the bow in the same place as you do when you normally set your sights, the better. Without shaking, lock that in. I guess you might be shaking if there's a big animal out there that you've been waiting for. And once it's locked in, I just give it a little wiggle, make sure that it hasn't slipped out of place. That looks fine. So you'll see now the difference is obviously the manual stop does not stop at 20, it's past 20 because of the different trajectory of the heavier arrow. So you're going to have to know about that. You can't just sit there, oh, there's the big animal at 20, I'm going to go to the stop, because it's not 20. So as we said, that impala there is 40 yards. I'll set this on 40, lock it down a little bit, get the right arrow, the heavy one, and that took what, a minute and a half, something like that. So you don't want to rush it, but you can definitely do it pretty quickly. So here we go, same sight, same bow, just a different sight tape, and obviously the heavier arrow, which is nearly double the weight, which you can imagine makes a very big difference on the trajectory. At the same target there, which was 40 yards, got the sight set at 40. Let's see if we can get 2 arrows in about the same spot. One thing I do want to mention, the spine of your arrows plays a big part of it. If you have, and this, I was a little lucky here, if you have a really big difference on the spine in terms of one being overspined or underspined, that's going to make a difference. If your heavy arrow is overspined, it's probably going to be shooting to the left. If your light arrow is underspined, it's going to be shooting to the right. Changing the sight tape is not going to make any difference for your left and right. So I'm pretty lucky, both of mine have worked out to be pretty much the same spine in a good range, and it doesn't make any difference with the left and right. But as I say, if you have one or both of them in the extremes in either direction, it is going to make a difference left and right, and changing the sight tape won't do anything about that. So right, let's see if I can prove my point here. So 40 yards with a heavy arrow, just the new sight tape. Let's see how this works. Well, that one looks okay. You can tell maybe even from the video there, these arrows, the light arrows are shooting at 278 feet per second, I think it was, and these ones are 208. So big difference on the speed and where they go, but they're almost knocking that target over, so that's pretty good. Well, I pulled that one, annoyed with myself, so I'll shoot one more, just to make sure. Always an excuse, eh? Trying to show off to my millions of subscribers. Well, there we go. Not the best grouping, little rush, but as I say, it's not about my accuracy, it's about the bow and the trajectory of the arrow, or the sight I should say. Let's get down there and have a look. Right, so not embarrassed to show a bad shot, we all get that, so I knew that wasn't a great shot. This was the first one, and that went right where I was aiming. Second one, when I corrected a little bit, as you can see, the right elevation, and just pulled a little bit to the side. We all know what happens when you're trying to shoot accurately in front of the camera. Anyway, there you go. I hope that helps you, and if you've got any questions, just ask, and I'll be glad to help.